As a small business owner, I deeply appreciate the passion, innovation, and craftsmanship that go into building something unique. Microbrand watches represent the epitome of this ethos in our space. Unlike mass market timepieces, microbrands often prioritize quality over quantity, storytelling over mere branding, and genuine customer connection over big budget marketing. With that in mind, today's video is also sponsored by another small business, which I'll cover a little later in this video, Watch Design Academy. Today I'm highlighting 3 microbrands that exemplify the spirit through their watches: the main Brooklyn 36, the Veta Niko Bucintoro, and the Manre MB2. Each of these watches has a story to be told of bold ambition and remarkable execution, delivering exceptional timepieces that reflect their creators' dedication. That being said, I'll still highlight some of the negatives and positives about each watch, and I have chapters down below for each of them as we go through. Now, this is the main Brooklyn 36 triple calendar, which is something you don't see very often. It's very well proportioned for a time that's gone by. Now, the 36, given the name, channels this elegance of vintage timepieces with its compact 36mm case. It caters to those who really want a discretionary refinement, and the dimensions are ideal for those who have small wrists or for anyone who's looking for a watch that doesn't scream for attention or likes a smaller package. I do find the smaller a dial is, the more you notice those little refinements, and they tend to stand out a little more than on a really large watch case. So why does this watch stand out? Now, first, it's the classic aesthetic, right? So you get a triple calendar watch in a micro brand at a reasonable price, which is a complication you don't see that often. And obviously in a wide range of subdued colors that's reminiscent of mid-century dress watches with a modern twist. You actually have a pusher on the side as well as the crown to set each of the days of the month. And as it switches over, you can obviously adjust the date separately, and then the date is what actually coincides to the month of the year. But you can track what day of the year you are entirely on this watch, just missing the year itself. Now in the back here, you're powered by the Miyota 9122, which has this included complication, and it comes here on this beautiful Jubilee style bracelet that's very well manufactured, ending here in an asymmetric butterfly clasp, which you can obviously have different thoughts on asymmetric clasp, but I like the little M here rather than doing their whole name. Is just a nice little touch. Now with this watch, it's very obvious that Mane knows exactly who their target audience is for this watch. They use these applied indices, the subtly domed sapphire crystal, and this finely brushed case showcases that their manufacturer did a very nice job. But to call a spade, the watch does feel very much like an oyster case design, with the curved side here, the relative flat bottom, even the Rolex style case back. The bezel here looks very much like what you'd see on an Explorer, just happens to have a brush finish versus a polish finish with the raised sapphire crystal on the top. It looks like, honestly, an Explorer in many, many ways, with a few small caveats, which I'll get into in the negatives, but the dial's been replaced with an annual calendar with this nice, in my case, beige interpretation. The big benefit on this watch has to be the wearability. It disappears on the wrist, which is kind of expected for a 36mm watch. Also, the symmetry, the font of the logo that's chosen, which I think a lot of people get wrong, is just simply font questions. And then also, even the little texture that you have in these recessed subdials, the date window was a nice choice. The exterior looks almost like more of a beige or an off-white or cream than an actual white surround with each of the minute tracks. And then my favorite part has to be the fact that these lume plots also come in this fauxtina. Now, I'm not a huge fan of fauxtina, but these little lume plots look exactly like what you'd have, or I used to have, on my vintage Tudor oyster prints. It's just like very classic vintage Rolex in many ways, just with a modern interpretation and a triple calendar layout. And that is honestly, I think, what they're going for here. You have the Jubilee style bracelet. Yeah, it's a butterfly clasp. That's a little different, but it is kind of what you would expect out of a Rolex or a vintage Rolex with this sort of complication, but designed with a few extra twists. But it does have, I would say, 2 main downsides to this watch. Outside of it not being everyone's cup of tea in terms of sizing, one is going to be that this bracelet is a bit on the sharp end on these backside links. That is something you typically see on Jubilees on a watch under $1,000, is that you just end up with a little bit less of like, they're not going to go in and knock each of these edges down to feel a little nicer, unless it's a huge brand like a Seiko, where they might actually do that on some of theirs, but they are hit or miss as well. And the other one has to be the fact that it has this very long lug to lug. For a 36mm watch, a lug to lug of 46mm is actually quite high, and it's noticeable that they're longer than the case head probably ought to be. I think if they reduced that, it would look more proportional and it would look better. But again, that's my preference. When it's on the bracelet, you don't notice those longer lugs very much, but when it's on a strap, you certainly will notice it more often. And so that's kind of the only two big negatives I would say on Manre. Otherwise, fantastic watch. Good price point, I would say, at about $780 roughly, depending on where you're purchasing it from. And I think a lot of the elements a lot of people like in vintage Rolex and vintage Tudor. And I don't see why you can't get that, but with a cool complication added in. Before we get to watch number 2, I want to highlight today's sponsor. Now, it's Watch Design Academy. If you've ever considered making your own watch or watch company, or you're just curious about the process, this is absolutely awesome. As someone who has learned 3D modeling and multiple CAD softwares for my business or my small business, these skills are not only useful for watches, but in general, very wildly helpful. Now, I love that there's a small business out there led by Dominic, who has been doing freelance work in the space for a while, but now is making his own brand to help design as well as teach others how to design watches with 3D renders and all the detailed CAD work that you would need to make your own. I think it's an awesome concept for a business, definitely something I'll be looking into as something I might toy around with, including 3D printing a watch case maybe at some point. But I just think it's really interesting, really unique, and really helps people that don't have that skill set to get off the ground if they're interested in potentially pursuing it. Check out Watch Design Academy, link down below, and use the code Harrison for 10% off when you check out. The second watch here is the Veta Niko Bucentoro, which is a Venetian design, and that's immediately apparent when you open up the watch. This draws from Venetian history. The Bucentoro is a ceremonial barge, and you see the watch screams Italy. I think as soon as you honestly look at the watch box, from the details on the box itself to the logo to the strap choice and the dial design, I think all of it just really feels Italian. It's powered by the dependable Seiko NE88A, which is something I'll focus on a little later, which is a column wheel activated chronograph vertical clutch movement, which is starting to make waves, I think, in the microbrand space. And for the price point it typically sells at, is something I think is great in a mechanical chronograph, as someone who loves mechanical chronographs. Now, as you even open up the box, they'll have a map where you can see each of the elements of Venice, where they're pulling their names for their different model lines. And that's where they have the picture of the barge. And it's unique. It's like tying a story into the unboxing experience. These details, I think, are what really create this feeling of connection to the brand, which is what you're looking for when you go for a micro brand. You know, this watch does tell a story, and it's a story that I think many people are going to connect to, especially if they have an Italian background. Now, the big thing here is they didn't outright copy anyone, which is what I want to highlight more than anything in these micro brands. Each pulls inspiration from somewhere else, but isn't a direct homage. Now, they could have done what many brands did and just taken a design and then used it as their own, but this watch didn't do that. It is very clean, it's very well finished, it is still a panda style design, but it isn't ripping off anyone. I think the applied indices are a nice touch, the applied logo at the top, the name, even the Bucentoro written underneath in that red script. I think everything's proportioned really well. It takes that 42mm and makes it feel a lot smaller just because the dial itself is relatively small, especially when you include the tachometer being on the interior of the watch. It makes the entire thing wear a lot more compact, but you're still robust because it has so much exposed steel that's showing. You know, I love that they did this different pusher design. I like the crown. I like the detailing of the logo etched onto the crown. I like even the fact that they have the barge on the back, etched into the back of the watch. The case is also really well designed and well finished, where you have the lugs actually have an angle in them before they come all the way down, and then a high polished chamfer that runs the entire length. Clearly, they're working with some very good manufacturers to be able to build this watch. Now, in the back here is something I really want to highlight, and that is the Seiko Movement. Now, this is an NE88A. This is a column wheel activated vertical clutch chronograph movement that's in a watch that's at a relatively affordable price range, especially for mechanical chronographs. And I remember a time frame where you really couldn't get any vertical clutch column wheel activated chronograph under about $5,000. And this is a different landscape now, especially led by this movement by Seiko. What it gives you is an activation that just is really tactile. And that's what you really want on a chronograph, is a feeling of solidity when you start it, and when you stop it and reset it, it just feels right in a robust movement, because obviously chronographs are more expensive to service. And then you add on top of that the fact that this is a vertical clutch, which means you could leave it running and it isn't going to cause any harm to the watch, because it operates like a car clutch now instead of the old version of a horizontal clutch. And I think that's a great value add to have in these mechanical chronographs these days. You're not just getting a seagull movement, you're getting a fantastic, well-built, robust Seiko movement in this watch. Now onto the negatives for the watch. I think the bezel is a little too big. It looks almost like there should have been an external bezel applied here instead of the tachymeter on the interior of the watch dial design. So having something on the exterior, or at least reducing the size of the bezel itself, I think would have looked a little bit nicer, a little bit more clean. The crown is grippy to the point where I think it might have actually gone a little too grippy. And because it has this brushed finish, but everything else around it is polished, it stands out. I think that having a little more polished elements would have made it blend in a little nicer and look a little nicer, but I'm getting pretty nitpicky here. This also has a ghost date position, because the movement has a date position and taking that out would cost a fortune. So just know that this does have a ghost date position. And the last potential negative is just, I think, the price. At $1,595 on this strap, they're bumping elbows with brands like Oris or like Longines. And even though this has a column wheel chronograph movement in here that's made by Seiko, you're really pushing upstream a lot, where, you know, someone like Longines at a discount is going to be relatively close, even with a comparable movement that's an ETA. And so I think that is going to be the hardest selling point for a watch like this. Very well designed. I like the design aesthetic. I like the look of it, but it will be tough, I think, to sell it at that specific price point. You know, knock $300-400 off that price point, and I think it becomes more compelling, but where it's at right now is going to be a little difficult in the grand scheme of things. The third watch here is a Manre. Now, I hadn't heard of this company, but this is a tool watch designed with a Japanese eye for detail. No doubt about that. So this is the MB2, which is also named the Kenkyu, which I know I'm going to pronounce incorrectly, which is the era when the first shogunate was founded in Japan. Now, that is all about the fact that this is supposed to evoke the aesthetic of Japanese samurai history into the watch, with sharp angles, high polished elements, and a dial that's made out of jewel steel. It also has a Japanese name, which I'll put down below. I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but it's a core material used in crafting Japanese swords. And they place that into the watch dial, allowing it to be a little more reflective, but it's really not as reflective as I thought it was going to be. It's pretty subdued. It just has texture to it. Now, these indices are very reflective, as well as the logo. And I think that's what the standout feature of this watch has to be, the complexity of the number of sharp angles to this watch, especially in macro space. When you take a look at these indices, you see this level of detail, these flat serrated ends that I thought were really cool. I couldn't tell that that's what was going on from a visual standpoint with just my naked eye, but under a loop or under this macro lens, you start to notice those details, which I feel like are very Japanese in the fact that it's something you wouldn't otherwise know unless you knew to look for that thing. The designers around this watch tried to think of, I think, just about everything. The clasp here even has an on-the-fly adjustment that's very much like the IWC bracelet that I have, where you ratchet it forward on your wrist or even just holding it here, and then you pull this lever in the back, and that allows you to release it in order to give yourself a little more room. It does have a 2-button deployment style here on the clasp, that adjustability, and each of these links has got this high polished chamfer on the edge, which gives it an extra element of refinement that I think is, again, something you typically don't see at this price point. Now, this watch is retailing right now in their pre-order period for $489, which I think is a pretty good value for a lot of the different elements that are in here. Between the nice finishing that's on this bracelet, which I think, again, is one of the standout features, to those little markers that are on the indices and the color contrasted hand, they've got these elements that you wouldn't typically see. Even the crown on this is kind of complements the things I was complaining about with the Veta Niko. Like between the main, that, and this has the best crown, and it's the least expensive of the three. It just looks simple, but when you start to feel a crown, you do get a feeling of whether or not you like it or not. I know that's really nitpicky, but that's what you're typically operating. And so you want to have something that's grippy, but doesn't get too grippy, but looks integrated with the side of the case. This has a really nice, well-designed feature set to the entire watch. Now this watch is a prototype, so it isn't without its potential things that I would fix. For example, one of them is the fact that these end links are a little more rounded. They don't look like the same as the links of the actual bracelet. They look very different from one another. And Manre has said that this is not going to be the same end links that are on the full production run. My guess is they had to take standard end links to see if they were going to fit for these prototypes. The other thing I didn't like as much about this watch was the fact that honestly, the logo just disappears on this black dial. Unless it's in high, like reflective light, the logo completely vanishes. I can read the hands. The indices sometimes vanish a little bit, but the logo is really hard to read. And so they said they're going to put an anti-reflective coating or a less reflective coating on the logo to help make it as reflective as the hands or as matte as the hands to make it easier to read the logo when you're actually looking at it. And I never thought I'd complain about not being able to see a logo before, but it's unusual for it to be there and you not to be able to read it quite as well as I would want. The only other potential negative on this watch, honestly, is just gonna be the fact that it isn't someone's cup of tea. You know, the dial design is relatively unique. They do have a mother of pearl or CNC'd mother of pearl variant you can also purchase if you want something that's a little less textured, I guess, like this jewel steel is. And that's a preference thing. I like this dial. It's different. It isn't like a standard lacquer or printed or matte dial. And I like that about it. It may not be something I would run out and purchase right away, but now that I've seen it, it's something I would definitely consider. So, you know, this is why microbrands deserve your attention. Between Maine, Veta Niko, and Manre, they're reshaping the watch industry by daring to be different, by creating things in a better value package that make you reconsider if those big brands are really overpriced or not. And I think they resonate with small business owners like myself and watch enthusiasts alike. Now, supporting microbrands isn't just about buying the product, it's about championing a vision, fostering creativity, and connecting with something that's meaningful. Each of these watches represents a triumph of independent spirit and craftsmanship, of a willingness to try to make your own thing, and a reminder of what small businesses can achieve with determination and heart. So what do you guys think about these three watches? Do you have a favorite? And thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.